My name is Justin Ahrens, and I am the creative director at Roll 29. And I think people recognize us most for the design for good type work that we do, and also the fact that I tend to like to help other designers with the work-life balance question. I call that life kerning. Buy the book. You know, when I was younger, I had this goal that I wanted to, and I think anyone who gets into the design business to a certain level wants to be known and respected for their work. That's become less important to me as I've started to grow my firm and also grow my family and realize that those things aren't as important to me as they were when I started. With that said, I would love to be known as a designer and a design firm that does really strong conceptual work that helps make the world a better place. I didn't realize at the time, but when I was in 4th grade, I was struggling a lot with school, and I always doodled on my, like my math papers and all that sort of thing, and I was actually a horrible student. And my teacher came up to me and said, hey, this next book report, could you draw it and present it to the class? And represent the book and everything with, visuals, and I devoured that project. It was the first project in a long time that I was really excited about at school. I came back and I presented it, and he actually created space for me to do all of my work visually. And I didn't know it then, but that's when I became a designer. As I, dug deeper and deeper into, sort of art and that sort of thing, I realized that going back to that time, that's when it all happened. I knew I was going to be doing something like that the rest of my life. I think the time I realized I was a designer, the moment that, I'm like, hey, I'm a designer, all kind of happened was, shit, I don't know. It's a great question. Part of it was, I was that kid in high school that everyone used to call to do like their invitations and their like t-shirt design. I'd be doing like menus for people's birthday parties because I was like interested in it and I drew it, and I loved typography and all that sort of thing. And then when I got to college and I took my first intro design class, I was like, oh, that's what I am. I just thought I was, kind of a nerd who liked to make all those little things. And I think it wasn't until college, actually, that I realized that what I was doing was deemed, quote unquote, a designer. I've had a lot of different inspirational designers or creatives I've really looked up to. I think from a designer standpoint, one of the first was Michael Schwab. I loved work that was very simple, but crafted really well and told a story. And I think perfect in that way. It still holds up. Work he did 10, 15, 20 years ago still looks amazing to me, at least. Paul Rand was like the first, corporate design person I was aware of. I read his books and all that sort of thing, and I thought, oh, it's interesting. I kind of like his philosophy. Kit Heinrichs was a big one for me. I really loved his style and simplicity. But if you want to go back to when I was a child, I think Norman Rockwell actually was a designer in a lot of ways, with the way he created art and integrated it with all the publications that he was in and stuff. So I think a combination of all those. I literally do this, and I do this with my kids sometimes. We talk about what we would get, or that sort of thing. And inevitably, every time my kids ask me, Dad, what would you do with your life? And I wish I could say that I would not design, because sometimes this job is hard, but I just love it. I think if I had $500 million, I would probably start a firm that we didn't have to worry about fees necessarily, and we'd work for clients that needed our help the most, that were trying to make the world a better place. I don't know anything else that I really want to do. I think if I wasn't a designer, quote unquote, I would love to be able to make it as, a fine artist, but my work would look really graphic. I would, in fact, I thought I was going to be a painter. I went to college originally to be a painter and an art teacher until I discovered design class, and all my paintings were, they basically look like logos on canvas. I like to break down things to its simplest form. So I think I design because this is how I was made. And when I see something beautiful, I react. When I see something awful, I react. I just think it's kind of built into my DNA. I wouldn't know anything else to do. I think it would be someone who has the ability to tell a story in its simplest form. describe it like that because there are so many different things that we have to do today as a designer that it still has to come down to the story. And we have this ability to see the world differently and tell a story very simply to get a point across. If I was cut off from the world of music and movies, I would struggle for inspiration. For whatever reason, those two parts of my life are so influential. I need to have music playing all the time to energize me and to actually, more ideas come to my head when I'm, listening to some great music. And movies because I love the constant reminder of creating space to allow a story to, move you, persuade you, make you laugh, make you cry, all that sort of thing. I think great design has that same ability. So those things together are really important to my sort of inspirational soul food. Design is a funny career to be in because you never know where it's going to take you. We tend to be sort of specialized generalists. We know a little about a lot unless you specialize in certain types of businesses. There's a common narrative there, right, with understanding story. Design has taken me all over the world, and it's the way that, I was built to take information and to see it, and the skills that we as creatives have, it's incredibly unique where that can take you. So my design curiosity, the ways I wanted to use design thinking to impact people around me in the community, has completely radically changed the way I see the world. We started doing work for organizations that work with veterans and throughout sub-Saharan Africa, and it's completely affected the way I run my studio and the way I live my life and how I am with my family. So design has incredibly impacted my day-to-day.